Going on, ladies and gentlemen? We're back with another episode of the Ballistic Report. Thank you for joining. I'm Corey Spivey. I'm here with Taylor Moore, and we're going to talk about a little bit of trade action, trade rumors, some offseason action, and some different teams on both sides of the ball. Jurrell Casey is one of those guys who came out of Tennessee, went up to Denver, and didn't get a chance to show what he still had left in the tank. And the Broncos have let him loose. If you're a Titans fan, if you're a general manager here in Tennessee, and you're looking at Jurrell Casey being available again, knowing that they wanted to sign him, but they just couldn't, are you looking to make a move and bring Jurrell Casey back to Tennessee?
Oh, I would say yes, just based off leadership alone, man. Our defensive line was suffering terribly last year with the loss of him, and it was obvious that his impact was missing. So this is really one of those things where, again, I have to go back to it, man. With the Titans and the market in the NFL, man, like we're not one of those teams who can have that much leverage when it comes to keeping good players.
Right.
And the way that we let him go and we traded him for a bag of chips, like something like that, man, will make a player not want to come back. So I would say that, if you can bring him back for a reasonable price, they'll still make him happy, man, because the way they did him, that at least give him something to kind of repay him a little bit. But I would say that it wouldn't hurt to have him back at all. Really just the fact that besides Simmons, that's the only surefire player that we know is going to be on that defensive line. We know that Clowney, he's recovering from surgery, but again, he's a free agent. So it's still up in the air whether he'll be back with us or not. So it's one of those things where, look, man, Jurrell Casey was drafted by the Titans in 2011. He went to 5 Pro Bowls with the Titans.
Right.
So he had all of his success with the team that he's drafted with, man. So hopefully the Titans can just be able to talk to him and just say, hey, man, we're sorry for the way we treated you. Look, we know you have a house, down here, especially if you stay here 8-9 years, you have to have a house, and a nice foundation in the city already. So that's a lot for a player to think about too as well, man, because he is getting towards the end of his career, even though I think he still has some more gas in the tank. So I would still give him a shot if I was the GM. What you think?
Yeah, I think for some of the same reasons, you at least look at him. He's a guy who, first and foremost, the reason is I, as a general manager, would look at him is the veteran leadership and the familiarity that he has with the system. He was a guy who was an anchor on that defensive line, anchor of the entire team. A guy that came in, he was a standout guy on and off the field. So, and you had some trouble in that defensive line, like you talked about. So I definitely have to look at him as a potential candidate for trying to revamp this defensive line, give them some more energy, some more, control and direction on where they're trying to go. They've got some young guys on that line that really didn't contribute a lot. I mean, Jeffrey Simmons was that guy, but they really struggled. And like you talked about, you've got guys that have injury concerns that you don't know if you're going to be able to bring back or if you even want to bring back. But I think as a general manager, the one thing that kind of keeps me from potentially wanting to bring him back is the same reason that they let him go. And that's for the financial reasons. Is he going to be a guy that's going to be able to come in and realize that he's, closer to the end of his career than to the middle or the beginning? And is he going to be able to swallow his pride? And is he going to be able to financially come back for one of those, veteran minimums or whatever the case may be that they can pay him? I just don't think they're going to be able to pay him a lot of money with their current cap situation, and I don't think that they should. So if he's a guy that can come back and can be healthy, also, we don't know how what is left of him after this year. So if they can get him in training camp or something like that and get a good look at him, see where his head is as far as a contract is going, I think if you can work something out, then by all means, you want to bring him back. Maybe not as one of the key pieces on your defensive line. That's obviously going to be Jeffrey Simmons and whoever you draft, but I think he will be a great locker room guy and a great leader or captain of that defense that can show these young guys where they need to go. So if I'm a general manager, I'm definitely looking at trying to work something together. But ultimately with, the situation that they're in, I just don't see it happening. So we'll kind of have to see how that goes. The Titans would definitely love to have him back. They could have used him last year.
Yeah.
Another guy, that's going to be missed from last year is J.J. Watt. He was disgruntled. He made that very clear coming into this last game against Tennessee with the statement that he put out, and, the post, and, changing his location and all of the hoopla that went with it. And then out of nowhere, he signs with Arizona. I don't know how many people saw that coming, but, when the news broke yesterday that J.J. Watt was signing with Arizona, what were your initial thoughts?
Man, number one, I thought that, based on the sources that they told us, they told us the Packers, Browns, and Bills, and even some people were saying the Titans. And out of the sources that they kept giving out, when he signed with the Cardinals, everyone was like, what's going on? Like, why them?
Right.
And obviously, you look at the contract, it's 2 years, 31 million, but 23 million guaranteed. And we all know in the NFL, the only money that you really count in a contract is just the guaranteed money, because as soon as you have a bad season or you get injured, you cut, and all that money that's guaranteed, that's all yours. So I'm assuming that, hey, obviously he's going with the money over the ring. Man, I seen one comment on another channel, man, that basically said that the only how he's going to get a ring is if he goes to Tom Brady's house and steal one. And the way it's looking,
right?
Hey, look, man, the thing is, man, the way it's looking, that sounds about right, man, because, okay, all right, so I'm about to name a couple teams to you, all right? So I want you to let me know if the team is better than them, all right? Just quick rundown. Seahawks. All right, so.
No.
All right, let's say the Rams.
No, now with Matthew Stafford now.
All right, what about with the 49ers? Like, based off this last season, you say the 49ers are better than the Cardinals? I know.
So you're saying these teams are better than them?
Yeah, I'm asking.
Well, I say that yes.
There they are.
Yes, those first two teams are still better than the Cardinals, and I think that
these are the same.
I think the 49ers can be a toss-up.
Yeah,
but I believe that when they get their healthy players back, yes, I think the 49ers will still be a better team than the Cardinals.
Now, I said that because those three teams I named are in the NFC West, which is the same division that the Cardinals are in. So he's going to a team, it's the third best team in the division. The only how you get into the playoffs is if you get a wild card.
Right.
So my thing is, man, so honestly, man, so the position at the end, man, they're probably just going all in, just thinking that, hey, this is a season where we're just gonna do what we gotta do and just win the division. But right now, based off last season, man, they're not even the first or second best team. So I don't know what all this going through J.J. Watt mind. Number one, obviously say the money, but like in this case, it doesn't make sense to me. But maybe. Maybe from his perspective, he probably has it worked out just about how he'll be able to have more playing time, because there may be another option too, because he is older too as well. So I highly doubt that he'll be playing every season on the defensive side. So that may be another factor too. But at the same time, if I'm paying you $23 million, man, you playing at least 90% of the snaps, So that's so what do you think?
Yeah. It kind of, to me, it came out of left field, and actually, to me, it was kind of disappointing. More than anything, I would have loved to see him in Pittsburgh, with his brothers, and I think they could have used him. Their defense was pretty good last year, but I think he was one of those completing pieces. With the chemistry, it would have been a cool story. Also, of course, as a Titans fan, I would have loved to see him here in Tennessee. I think he could have contributed. But ultimately, like you said, with the sources and with the rumors that were coming out, I don't know that Arizona was the last team on my mind, but they definitely weren't near the top 5, top 10, probably even, maybe top 10. But, and I agree. I never thought about that. They're probably the third or worst team in that division. So, the only reasons that I can think that he went to Arizona was for two reasons, and that was for the money or to be with DeAndre Hopkins again. And it could have been a combination of both. Hey, listen, we're going to get you the most money, and we're going to come here and have fun. You're not going to win a ring in Houston, so you might as well come here, make more money, have fun. So I think ultimately that's probably the situation. Look, I think that they they improved drastically on the defense by adding him if he can stay healthy. But I still think they're going to be a middle of the pack, bottom tier team. I don't think this does much for their overall success. I don't think it moves them closer to making a playoff run. I don't think it moves them closer to making any wins. Maybe he can make a few more plays, but I don't think it's going to drastically shift their chances of being a contender. So I mean, ultimately, I don't think that the Cardinals lost. I don't think J.J. Watt necessarily lost because I don't know what kind of money he was getting. But definitely from the hype that was coming into this, I definitely do think that it was a disappointment that he ends up in Arizona. But ultimately, I guess we'll have to see how the chips fall in that division. Maybe they've got some other moves in the work. But I'm right there with you. I don't think he makes that much of a difference to the Arizona Cardinals. But this individual may. And they've completely botched this for the last 2 or 3 plus years. You know, they had the opportunities to sign him. They didn't. The injury, you know, the middle of the pack, 8-8, below level, you know, records. And that's Dak Prescott. There's so much confusion going on here. If you're Dak Prescott, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, if you're Jerry Jones, what are you doing with Dak Prescott?
I would say from an owner GM position as Jerry Jones is right now, just go ahead and pay the man because at this point, people are getting tired of hearing about this situation. It's been going on before this. Yeah. It's been going on before the 2020 season started, and it's still going on now. You know, and it's even worse, and it brings more onto it to the fact that he injured himself, too. You know, man. But the way I kind of look at it now, you know, if you would have paid him last season, that's already 1 year in the books already. You know,
yeah.
He was saying that he wanted like a 4-year deal instead of a 5-year deal so he can get out sooner. Boom, look, you could have had 1 year done and 3 years to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
yeah.
And just the fact that, you know, the Cowboys supposed to be America's team and whatnot. And we can tell over these past 10, 15, 20 years and longer than that, they're not America's team anymore. And it's obvious. So this is just a way for him just to prolong the talks about the Cowboys being in the media. Like we're talking about it now. Because if he would have signed
right,
he wouldn't be having this conversation right now because he's already locked in. And another thing too, before I end this one out, is just the fact that with the new TV deals and stuff that happen, you know, every like 4 or 5 years or so, that means that the salary cap will end up rising for each team, so they have more money to pay players. The longer you wait, you can potentially put yourself in a position where you're going to be paying Dak Prescott more than what he asked for in the beginning. Just to the fact that you have more money available. So you need to go ahead and lock him in before it's time, because we all know with Patrick Mahomes, with his contract, you know, he getting paid more than anyone in the league, and his contract seems ridiculous on paper. You know, so the more you keep putting it off, the more other players are becoming the next highest paid player in this position, the next highest paid player in this position. And that means that as an owner, you have to either match it, especially if your player is putting up stats. And Dak Prescott, for the position that he was drafted in, for him to put up those stats, he's already exceeded the expectations. So you need to go ahead and pay him now before it gets worse. And it's already at a position where, as a player, you wouldn't even want to play for an owner or a GM who is treating you this way.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that you're saying, particularly the last point that you just made. They should have already paid him. And that's the reason I respectfully disagree with the premise. I don't think that they should sign him now. I think he's worthy of having the position, but I think they've waited too late. If they came this far, they're in worse position than they would have been if they just did the deal when it was time. They had times before Patrick Mahomes, before Carson Wentz, before Jared Goff, before Deshaun Watson got paid. They had the opportunity to extend him then if he was their guy. Again, I'm not disputing the fact that I think he's the best person for the job for them. but they should have done this a long time ago. They had to, send him through the year, hope he didn't get hurt last year. He didn't. They had to send him through the year this year and hope he didn't get hurt, and he did. So that's number one. You don't know what kind of product you're getting back on Dak Prescott. I think he's going to come back just fine, but they don't know that. So that's strike number one. Strike number two is that you're going to have to franchise tag him for what, $37 million this year, which is right around what he asked for in the beginning. Yeah. So then you just went back and basically burned a year. Okay. If they don't sign him this year, they owe him $51+ million next year, which takes you further than what you would have had to originally pay him. So I don't think they're going to sign him. I don't think that they should sign him from a financial perspective. It's obvious the video that they put out before the beginning of the year, it doesn't include him. There's bad blood between them. And I think that when he comes back, I don't think that bad blood is just going to disintegrate. It's still going to be there. He's going to be unhappy. They're going to be unhappy. There's going to be some tension, some unease, and some unrest there. So I just don't think that they should sign him, especially with a guy like Russell Wilson, potentially, who we're going to talk about next, being on the market. You've got some decent quarterbacks coming out of the draft. If he was their guy, they would have already signed him. I'm not disputing the fact that he's talented enough to be their quarterback and that he's put in the due diligence to be their quarterback. But I just think from a financial respect position, if he was going to come this far to sign him, they should have signed him a long time ago. And I don't think it's going to get easier from this point forward. So that's why I say I don't see why they sign it going forward.
Let me ask you something though. All right, so you think that it is a greater chance of the Cowboys trading for a quarterback or drafting one, like you just mentioned, other different possibilities?
I think they're going to have to draft one because I don't know how much trade stock they have. I mean, who do they have? Here's the only thing that I've heard. The only thing that I've heard is they tag or they sign Dak, whatever the case is, and then they offer him and Ezekiel Elliott to the Seahawks for Russell Wilson. I don't know if you heard that, but that's probably the only deal that I've heard them, that I believe that they can potentially make to get him out of there. Ezekiel Elliott has declined. Dak Prescott obviously doesn't want to be there. They don't want him there. But Pete Carroll wants to run the football, and I think that Ezekiel Elliott can still be effective in Seattle running the football. So I think that's probably the only fair trade. Other than him, I don't know how much draft stock they have. That defense is terrible, and they're going to need to keep all of those offensive pieces that they need there. I mean, what do you think? Should they, if they don't sign them, what do they draft or trade?
Man, I honestly think they have a better chance of just drafting someone.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking, and this is a super random, man, but I'm thinking that they plan on getting Mac Jones, man. But this me being random on that thought, but I have a feeling, man, they're going to select Mac Jones and just see if they can just put him into the system, that they already have in place, and I'll just see if they can keep it rolling. But obviously, like you said, they don't want him here, and in the draft, we'll be able to see whether they'll take a shot at him, man, because it's a lot of quarterbacks coming out this year. It's a lot of good, decent quarterbacks that had a lot of good seasons. So I definitely see them taking a shot on at least one of them, man. And it's just the fact that they drafted Dak Prescott like in the 4th round, I believe. So the fact they drafted him like in the mid round like that. So the way that he's produced over the 4 or 5 years being a Cowboy starter, hey, it's worth taking that shot again. So.
Definitely. And I like that pick. He's not a guy that originally came to mind, but if they're going to go in the draft, based upon who's going to be there, we know Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, those guys are probably going to be gone quick. But Mac Jones, if he's there, he's got that Texas, swag to him. Yeah. He's a good quarterback, and I think he definitely would fit right in Dallas. But, I mean, again, we'll just have to see how this happens. It's been like a crazy year for quarterbacks. And as we stick with this quarterback news and kind of round out this show, Russell Wilson has been this surprise. It's like there was smoke and then everybody tried to ignore it. And then sure enough, there's fire. You know what I'm saying? So like if you're Russell Wilson, where are you trying to go? Because I believe he has a no trade clause in his contract. So where are you trying to go if you're out of Seattle?
Man, All right, man. So based on the teams that he gave, he said the Cowboys, Saints, Raiders, and the Bears. All these markets we
Yeah.
know are big markets. So that means that if he goes to these
Yeah.
cities, it's only gonna make the city better, and it's gonna give him a lot more respect in the place that he's at. So, man, so with the teams that he's given, obviously, it seems like it's more than just football. So the things like some people were saying that
Yeah.
maybe his wife Sierra had a factor in on that, and hey, and listen, I can't say whether or not that's true or not, maybe, but man,
Yeah.
based on the teams that he's given, he's obviously saying the Seattle Seahawks market is not it for him. But but personally, if I was Russell Wilson, I wouldn't want to leave, man, because number one, you already
Mm.
brought a championship to the city. You already loved by everyone there for what you did to him. Number two, the start of the season for the Seahawks, man, they were lighting the league on fire.
Yeah.
Man, dude, they were lighting teams up the first half of the season. The second half of the season, they started to have trouble, and then they basically blew up towards the end. But the fact that there's potential there, that's something that you can at least say, and comparing this to Deshaun Watson, man, Deshaun Watson didn't have as nearly as much talent as Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson wants to leave. And I think that's
Right.
disrespectful, man. I'm like, listen, man. Like you have everything you need here to be successful. And of course, you're going to go back and forth with your coaches uh, and staff to try to figure things out. Because hey, if you want to win, of course, you're going to have to go through certain things like that. But at the same time, compared to the Deshaun Watson position, man, I wouldn't be complaining if I was Russell. So I think if anything, they just need to change the offensive system because it was said that throughout the system, so it was said that towards the second half of the season by different players that basically teams started to figure them out. Because I know DK Metcalf was saying that on the House of Athlete YouTube podcast, man. So he was saying that towards the second half of the season, man, the team they started to figure out their schemes. So it was easy for them to adjust to them for those first and second halves. So just saying that alone
Yeah.
just goes to show that hey, maybe it's not the players, maybe it's not so much of what's going on with the personnel. It's more just the scheme that you have going on. So if you fix that problem, you can continue to have that hot start like y'all had last season and carry it on to the playoffs. Because they still went to the playoffs, but hey, they flat.
Right.
So I would say just based off the potential you have here, because as you mentioned, talking about Deshaun Watson and him being traded, if he gets traded to another team, it's some pieces he's gonna have to. It's there are gonna be some pieces from that opposing team that have to leave to go to over to other team. So he's gonna lose some as he goes to that new team.
Yeah.
So I would say that your best option is to stay here and just retire. I mean, you already brought a championship to the city. You have some nice young weapons on the offensive side of the ball who can go get it. Just stick with it. See if you can work with the coaching staff so you can change some of the plans and the schemes and go from there. Other than that, that's how I kind of see it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to speak to what you said because I think you gave a great premise there, and I agree with it 100%. So I kind of want to speak to there and then answer the question that I asked you. I think, like you said, man, if I'm Russell Wilson, this wouldn't have been the year I spoke up. Not in public. I think it would have been in private. Hey, listen, and maybe he has, but maybe I put the hammer down. Look, you got to fix this or I'm walking. You know what I'm saying? And I think he's got 2 more years on his contract, but I think behind closed doors, you put a little bit of pressure on him. Hey, look, the wife's unhappy. I'm unhappy. I'm tired of getting hit. I'm not as young as I used to be. There's 2 things I want you to improve. Go out, draft some guys on the offensive line, bring in an offensive line coach that can get the job done, coach these guys up, go see who you can get in free agency, and we fix this offensive line, and then you go in the draft or in free agency, and you get some decent running backs, and let's get back to doing what we're trying to do. If we're going to stick with this game plan, or we're going to have to move away from this, and Pete Carroll's going to have to move more into the passing game and away from the running game. That's what I would have said. I agree he should stick it out because he's got those young guys like DK Metcalf that are willing to go in, and then they prove that they're dogs. So if I'm Russell Wilson, yes, I would have kept my mouth shut and stayed there. But the reason I disagree is because he opened his mouth. Now you've got to go back behind these guys who they know you don't believe in. Well, if you don't believe in us, we've lost chemistry. And as a quarterback, there's one thing you don't do. You don't criticize your line in public. You take them to the side, you talk about it. And now your receivers are knowing, oh man, this dude is checked out. The whole team is looking at you as their leader and saying, oh, he's out of here. So that you've lost his chemistry, I believe, where this is a conversation that we could have had behind closed doors, and you basically shocked yourself to the public. With that being said, since he shocked himself to the public and he may have destroyed some relationships and chemistry, I think the best place, if he's going to go in free agency, if he can't fix it like you're saying, I think the best fit for him is the New Orleans Saints, because they've got some of these same things that he's asking for already in place. They've got a Mike Thomas. They've got an Alvin Kamara. They've got a decent offensive line. They've got a defense and a culture that's already there where he can just be plugged in. And, they've shown with Taysom Hill that they're willing to kind of flex the system a little bit, right? So I think that the New Orleans Saints will probably be the best fit if he's going to leave Seattle, to me. And I understand your premise that he should stay. But if you had to make a decision and you're Russell Wilson and you've got to leave Seattle, where are you going?
Man, honestly, I think I'll go with the Bears. I know, and this is round.
Okay.
Like I would go with the Bears, man, because with the defense, man, the defense was sound.
Yeah.
Man, so I believe last season they started out, I think like 5-2 or something like that. So they started out fairly well.
Yeah, they
with
did.
A bad offense with a quarterback who really is not built for that team and probably not as prepared for the league. So I would say like the defense alone, if the defense can get you to a 5-2 start with a poor offense, all you need is just a solid quarterback to will players. So I would say that he'll have a good shot with the Chicago Bears probably. And also this may be a caveat, I guess, but Allen Robinson, like their main wide receiver, man, he was able to go for 1,000 yards again with a terrible quarterback. And I know that he's a free agent, but the fact that if Russell Wilson can come to the Bears, then that give him a reason to re-sign. And boom, now you have your number one wide receiver, your number one quarterback. You're able to play it along. And if you have that going, they're at least going to go to a few playoff games.
Definitely. Yeah, I definitely can see that. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these. I don't think the Raiders will work. But I think, you know what I'm saying?
No, man, not with John Gruden, man.
Yeah, no, I just don't think they would gel. I think he'd end up back in the same position. So so much stuff is going on, and I think a lot of this news, a lot of this suspense is going to probably begin to break up, after this week, after next week, as free agency begins to open. So we'll have to keep our eyes open. I'm sure we'll get some more surprises and things like that. So you guys stay tuned with us as always at the Ballistic Report. We'll be right there with you every step of the way, every, pin drop, every news that comes out. We always appreciate you all's support, sharing these videos. Until next time, I'm Corey Spivey, and this is Taylor Moore. This has been the Ballistic Report.